Welcome to the bumps in the dark.
Listen if you dare. Listen if you dare.
Camden Creek wasn't marked on most maps. If you found it, it was by accident. The kind of accident that usually ended with a flat tire or a dead phone signal. Nestled outside of Black Hollow, it was a sleepy, moss-draped village where fog hugged the ground year-round and trees whispered things you weren't supposed to hear. 16-year-old Rowan Mercer hated moving there. After her mom took a research job at a remote biological facility known as Virex, Rowan and her little brother Eli were dragged away from city life and dropped into an old farmhouse on the edge of Camden Creek. Their mother, Dr. Elaine Mercer, was working in a government-run greenhouse project. At least, that's what she said. But there was one rule she repeated every night, almost like a prayer. Never go near the shed. It wasn't just a shed, though. It had its own padlock. It gave off a low electrical hum that seemed to vibrate through the ground. And sometimes, just sometimes, green light leaked out from the cracks in the wood. At first, Rowan followed the rule. There were plenty of other things to focus on. Getting used to a new school, dealing with Eli's nightmares, and pretending not to notice how pale and distracted her mom had become. But the more they settled in, the weirder things got. Eli swore he heard voices coming from the shed at night. Rowan dismissed it as his imagination until she heard them too. Her mom was gone longer and longer each day, returning home with leaves stuck in her hair or mud on her lab coat, even when the weather was dry. And the worst part? She stopped eating. Every night, she'd sit at the dinner table with no plate and say, "I'm not hungry. I already ate." One evening, Rowan peeked outside and saw her mother crouched beside the shed, her fingers digging into the soil. She wasn't gardening. She was eating it. That night, Rowan broke the rule. She waited until midnight, then crept outside with a flashlight and bolt cutters she'd borrowed from the garage. Eli insisted on following her, despite her protest. "Something bad lives in there," he whispered. The lock snapped. The door creaked open. Inside, the air was wet and warm, like a tropical swamp. Thick vines slithered across the walls and ceiling. Fluorescent grow lights buzzed overhead, illuminating rows of half-human, half-plant hybrids growing in glass tubes. Some had mouths. Some had eyes. Then, one of them blinked. A shriek echoed through the shed. Not from Rowan, not from Eli, but from the corner. A hunched figure emerged, stepping out of the roots. It was their mother, but twisted. Her skin was a patchwork of bark and flesh. Vines slithered from her spine. Her eyes glowed faint green. "You weren't supposed to come here," she hissed. "It's not ready yet." Eli screamed. Rowan grabbed his hand and backed toward the door, but the roots blocked their path. The plants in the tubes began to twitch and groan. "They couldn't survive on their own," Dr. Mercer said, her voice laced with something old and wild. "Virex abandoned the project, but I stayed. They respond to me. They grow stronger with every offering, with every piece of me I give them." "What? They feed off of you?" Rowan said shakily. Dr. Mercer didn't answer. She just smiled. Rowan spotted a rusted gas can near the door. She remembered seeing her mother pour it into the generator days before. Taking a chance, She hurled it toward the nearest grow light. The glass shattered. Sparks flew. Gasoline ignited and fire caught the vines instantly. The shed erupted into chaos. Screeches from the hybrids, roaring flames, the air turning thick and poisonous. Dr. Mercer let out a howl and lunged for them, but the roots recoiled from the fire. Rowan pulled Eli through a gap in the wall and sprinted for the house. The shed burned until dawn. Authorities came. Virex denied everything. The remains were declared an unauthorized science project gone wrong. No bodies, no proof. Their mother was never found. Rowan and Eli were placed with relatives in Black Hollow. They never talked about the shed, not publicly. But some nights, when the wind blows through the trees just right, Rowan swears she can hear her mother's voice in the leaves.
You can't burn what lives beneath the soil.
Midnight fog, the shadows crawl, footsteps echo down the hall. Doors creak open, whispers sigh, something unseen is passing by. Lanterns flicker, the cold wind hums a warning song. Do you hear the drums? They whisper your name when the night turns black. No turning around, there's no going back. In Black Hollow streets where nightmares start, you'll find the bumps in the dark.